My name's Rev Cool. I'm on WYSO Radio. I'd like to welcome you to celebrate peace in Dayton, Ohio, and the Miami Valley. And before we get started, I'd like to do one thing on this day of peace. As you're standing next to somebody, or as you see somebody that you don't know, I see this done in churches. I've been to synagogues. I've been to a mosque where people are always very welcoming. If you see somebody you don't know, somebody you've never met before, please go over and introduce themselves to you and to each other, and just say hello. And let's give each other a sign of peace right now. Appreciate that.
Shalom Alaikum. I know, I figured that because of the...
Well, thank you so much for your signs of peace. It's a big sign of peace for us being here today. This is both the 100th anniversary for the Peace Palace at The Hague and the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. But with all that peace in mind, I do want to remind you that there's a lot more work to be done. And then also on this day, to remind us of that, this is also on this date in 1955, unfortunately, Emmett Till was murdered. So even as we speak of peace, and the Peace Museum that was founded 100 years, not the Peace Museum, the International Peace Palace was founded 100 years ago, we have a lot more work to be done. And even today, as we speak, we see that in Syria, there's a terrible war going on and chemical gases are being done. So with that in mind, I'd like to use the Palace of Peace to inspire you and to use Dr. Martin Luther King's speech to inspire you today to work toward peace. I'd like to remind you today at 3 o'clock will be the actual time when Dr. Martin Luther King gave his I Had a Dream speech. And all across the world, people will be ringing bells to celebrate that. The cathedral in Washington, D.C. will be ringing its bells. The Smithsonian Institute will be ringing its bell. On squares in London, in Japan, and even in Alaska. Do you know Alaska? I heard that children are being ringing cowbells. So I encourage you at 3 o'clock today, if you have some little children, go get out cowbell and ring that joyous peace. Ring the sound of peace and joy throughout this land. We have a number of people to speak today. We have some great proclamations. I'd like to thank the Peace of the Palace, which is the Peace Palace in The Hague, the MLK Dayton Incorporated, Missing Peace Art Space, Peace on 5th, Jasmine Millick Mosaics, the Welker Studio, Lyndon Phillips Photography, John Wolof Videography, WYSO 91.3 FM, all who are sponsors of this day, as well as Classical WDPR 88.1. As we speak today, WYSO are playing songs of peace, and as we have this performance, they will have speakers at the station reading the I Have a Dream speech with people from all over the community, of all ages, all races. So within this piece in mind, I'd like to introduce to you and present to you Mayor Gary Lysel, right here from Dayton, Ohio. Mayor Lysel.
Thank you, everybody. Isn't this a wonderful day here in Dayton? Beautiful sunshine, a little hot. I'm wearing a suit. So hopefully I won't keep you here too long. Anyway, I have a proclamation to read from my office, and it reads, whereas 100 years ago, in the awful shadow of the coming World War, the Peace Palace was opened in The Hague as a symbolic home for the permanent court of arbitration to inaugurate a new enlightened era of peace and universal fellowship. And whereas exactly 50 years after the opening of the Peace Palace, Martin Luther King gave his vision of humanity in which all people could live together, work together, learn together, and prosper together regardless of their color. And remind us that the promise of full freedom and equality expressed in the Declaration of Independence had yet to be fulfilled. And whereas we are compelled to heed the words of Irish author Colum McCann, who wrote, "Peace is indeed harder than war, and its constant fragility is part of its beauty. A bullet need happen only once, but for peace to work, we need to be reminded of its existence again and again and again. And whereas John Kennedy said that the achievement of peace will not be accomplished in 100 days, nor will be accomplished in 1,000 days, nor even perhaps in our lifetime on this planet, but let us begin. And now, therefore, I, Gary D. Lysel, Mayor of the City of Dayton, do hereby proclaim August 28, 2013 as Celebrate Peace Day in Dayton." Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to inform you that the governor of the state of Ohio gave an official proclamation from the state of Ohio recognizing Dayton during the Celebrate Peace festivities and the 100th anniversary of the Peace Palace in The Hague and Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, the 50th anniversary. Right now, I'd like to introduce to you an illustrious man in the Dayton community, Dr. Anthony Whitmore.
Well, good afternoon. And I don't know about illustrious, but I'm just glad to be a part of here. Mujan, it's amazing. We were just talking. I get a call from this young lady, and she says, "I saw something about Peace of the Palace." I said, "What is Peace of the Palace?" And she went on to tell me, and I said, "Well, on August 28th, the Martin Luther King, Dayton Incorporated, we're going to be trying to do something on that day because that's the celebration of the March on Washington, the freedom and jobs part of Dr. King's eloquent speech." And we were just able to have that conversation because of the great work, and it's basically her work, that she's been able to do to bring us all together. We have this day, so let's give Mujan a wonderful round of applause. You know, Dr. King's dream is reflective of you. And as long as you're willing to put the effort out to make that dream a reality, we can make a difference. When he spoke about the dream wasn't something that just stayed in his mind and his head. It had to move and take flight. It had to be rebirthed. And that was the purpose of the march. 250,000 people to be on the square, to assemble there, to come together, black, white, Latino, every color. Imagine that here in this great community, when we have welcomed Dayton, thank God for our Mayor Lightso and other individuals who saw fit to create something for all people in this city, where we can live together, pray together, worship together. This afternoon, you're fortunate. I usually do Martin Luther King. Today, you're lucky you don't have to hear me do Martin Luther King. But I did teach some children. They're very gifted children that come from all parts of our community. The first young lady who will come up, I like all four of my students. I will call you up and introduce you. You can stand behind me and they'll begin. They will give and present to you, I Have a Dream. Stephanie Patino Carvias. Stephanie is a senior at the Stiver School for the Arts. Malia Mabry, she's in the 8th grade. She's also a student at the Stiver Schools for the Arts. Sevda Mirzaeva, she is a Stebbins High School sophomore. And the only young man who will be presenting today, Mr. Joseph Saban, who is at the wonderful excellent school, Mound Street Academy.
Welcome everyone, my name is Stephanie Patino Garfias, and today 4 students, including myself, will deliver a speech, a very famous speech that was delivered in 1963 in Washington in front of thousands of people by nonetheless Martin Luther King Jr. And it is entitled, I Have a Dream. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came to us as a great beacon light of hope that gave millions of Negroes freedom. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is languished in the corners of the American society and has found himself in exile in his own land. And so we have come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they signed a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. A note that stated that all men, yes, black men as well as white, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But it is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note, insofar as our citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the opportunity vaults of this nation. And so we have come here to cash this check. A check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice.
We have also come to this hollow spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing act of drugalism. Now is the time to make the real promise of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time for our nation to lift for itself from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all God's children. Let me be clear. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. The sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there's an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. And those who hoped that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundation of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there's something that I must say to my people who stand on the threshold, which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrong deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy a thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force and soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to the distrust of all white people. For many of our brothers today, as evidenced by their presence, and they have come to realize that freedom is bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. As we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied. As long as the Negro is the very victim of unspeakable horrors of police brutality, we can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with fatigue of travel, cannot lodge in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the cities.
We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating for white only. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro in Mississippi cannot vote. As long as the Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from the areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by storms of persecutions, by the staggered winds of police brutality. You have been veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to South Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair.
I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right here in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, "My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrims' right, from every mountainside, let freedom ring." And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. And so let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghanies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from the Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and every molehill, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, and when we all allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of old Negro spiritual, "Free at last, free at last. God Almighty, we are free at last."
Now, to quickly introduce you to them. And I want you to understand they represent a different culture. Sevda represents our Mid-Eastern culture. This beautiful young lady, Stephanie, represents our Latino culture. Malia represents our African culture. And Dr. King represents the European culture. Let's give them a hand. And free at last.
Let's hear it again. One big round of applause for those wonderful kids. When you see that going on in the city of Dayton, you know we truly have hope for the future. And on top of it, aren't they just handsome and beautiful?
Yes, they are.
And well
Yes, they
spoken.
are.
What a privilege to have them out here today. Coming up next, a friend of mine from many years. When many people gave up on downtown Dayton, C-Far-I was down here helping create the Downtown Reggae Festival. It's been going on for 26 years. It'll take place this Sunday at the Dave Hall Plaza, a huge multicultural festival. And he'll be presenting to you a couple songs. One will be original, and another will be from some of you may have heard before, John Lennon. But when you think about that, I want you to also think of Elvis Costello and Nick Lowe when they sang about what's so funny about peace, love, and understanding. Well, nothing's funny about it. It's completely serious, but it's also joyous. So keep that in mind with the music and message we have today. C-Far-I.
Great to be here. Mochman wanted to have music as part of this event because music is something that can open, as she put it, opens you to the message. So this is a song I did write with a message, real simple message. The title is Peace and Love. This is a message for the people of the world. This is from the mystic Rasta man. This is a message, peace and love to every boy, girl, woman, man. Oh yeah, we need peace and love. War is not the answer. We need peace and love and harmony. We need peace and love. Only love conquer hatred. We need peace and love and unity. Peace and love is not a crime. Peace and love is not a crime. This is no time to fight each other. Now is the time to respect your brother. No matter religion, no matter what color, respect is due to everyone's culture. Peace Peace and love is not a crime. Peace and love is not a crime. We need peace and love. War is not the answer. We need peace and love and harmony. We need peace and love. Only love can conquer hatred. We need peace and love and unity. Peace and love is not a crime. Peace and love is not a crime. Holy, holy, holy Mount Zion, it's the place I and I want to go. I know but you can't enter Zion if you're a warmonger. So throw down your arms, throw down your arms, come with the Rastaman. We need peace and love. War is not the answer. We need peace and love and harmony. We need peace and love. Only love can conquer hatred. We need peace and love and unity. Unity. Peace and love is not a crime. Peace and love is not a crime. We need peace and love. War is not the answer. We need peace and love and unity. We need peace and love. Only love can conquer hatred. We need peace and love and unity. Oh yeah, we need peace and love. We need peace and love, yeah, yeah, yeah. Peace and love is not a crime. 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 Thanks, everybody. Thanks, yeah. Well, I guess summer decided to finally come to us. Okay, I learned this one just for the occasion, so we'll see how it comes on. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no country. Isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. Hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine no possession. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. Brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. Hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one. Hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one. That's the note, you know? Yeah. All right. Once again, the one and only Jim Rev Cool Carter.
Thanks so much. Let's give John Melody a round of applause. Tom C. Farai, Carol. Be sure to check out C. Farai tonight on WYSO. They're playing live with the band with Johnny Dredd, and at the Dayton Reggae Festival with their full band. Horns, a whole horn section, multiple guitars, electrified. It's a great sight to be seen. Thanks to everybody for being here. I want you to think about something very important. It takes an incredible amount of work to put an event like this together. To get the publicity, to bring down I call it the Peace Mobile, to get the television out, the speakers, the music, the poster, and get the word out. There is somebody who has given her heart, her soul to this project. And when you see her after this event, make sure that you come up, give her a big hug, pat her on the back, give her thanks. I'd like to present to you today the organizer of this event, Dr. Mojan Samadar. Thank you so much.
Dayton, I'm so proud of you. We are making ourselves known as a city of peace. I would like really to take this opportunity to thank few key people in making this celebration happen and bringing it to you. First of all, to two ladies who started me on the path of organizing this event. My dear friend Janice Goodrich of Red Cross, thank you, and Dr. Hope May, the director of the Peace of the Palace project. Mayor Lightsoe and Governor Kasich for proclaiming this day as a celebration of peace in our community. Dr. Anthony Whitmer, director of the MLK Dayton, listened to my request and personally offered to guide the students, to train them, to actually portray these beautiful students. I am so proud of them, saying and interpreting Inspector King's speech. It means so much. Ms. London Cole, my kindred spirit, thank you. Ms. Gabriela Pickett for providing an art space for us to educate us that peace is accessible. Mr. Bashir Ahmad, Director of the International Peace Museum, thank you. He encouraged me all along. I had a personal phone call from Kashmir from him this morning. He wished all of you best celebration ever. My friend Terry Welker and Ron Lawrence for many, many meetings sitting with me and guiding me through this process. Jess Macmillan, Linda Phillips, John Wolford, and so many others which I do not have time to name them. Thank you, thank you. But last but not least, my love, my husband, for supporting me on everything. I would like all of you to thank you for coming, and I hope to see you in the evening events. Please spread the news and the message. The peace is a solution. We have to work hard to achieve it, but it is accessible. Let us begin. Thank you, Dayton. Thank you for all of you coming. Thank you. Happy celebration.
That concludes the events. Thanks for coming. Thanks to Ron Rollins for ranking and skanking out there. And don't forget, tonight at 6 o'clock, there is a Ride for Peace at Peace on 5th. And there's a filming of a peace movie at the Missing Peace Art Gallery. Thanks again, and peace go with you.